a little cold this morning. Let the engine warm up a little bit as we talk a little bit about this car. So this is a new Lusso at my shop. Story was that the owner came to me a while ago and said, I'm actually thinking about it's time to get a Lusso. Old time Ferrari owner, owned a bunch of cars, and but never owned a Lusso. And said, I think it's time. I think I want to get a Lusso. And he asked me to help him find one. So I found this one out in Los Angeles. Been owned by the same guy for a long time. Didn't seem to drive it much, but it had been restored many years ago. Again, restoration is funny. It's like if it was restored 30 years ago, 20 years ago, it's different to the standard that it is today. You know, that's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing. It's just, you know, older restorations, just they restore them to a different level. I still think they were nice restorations, but the specific little details are sometimes a little off. Not a big deal, especially for this guy, because this guy wanted to drive the car. He actually wanted to take a car and put it on road rallies that he's been doing with his other cars, and he said, I'd really love to do it with a Lusso. So we found this car, and I went out to Los Angeles to look at it. Thought it was pretty good. A couple little things here and there that just weren't correct, but again, not a big deal to the owner. He's driven it for the summer and sent it and said, look, I want you to go through, let's make this car more reliable, maybe get a little bit more power with it, and decide what we need to do to this car so it's reliable and ready to go for a for road rally. So that's kind of where we are right now. I just got it, and I've driven it out in Los Angeles, but you know, trying to test drive a car in Los Angeles is not exactly easy. So this is the first chance I'm going to get it to really take it out and just drive it a little bit and see, you know, make an assessment of it and figure out where we are. He's going to come over and we'll drive it together and talk about it. But you know, I'll bring you along for this first drive. So let's just take her out a little bit, just warm her up. You know, I've always loved Lussos. I mean, I think they're really pretty. This car is not necessarily Corsa Rossa. It's possibly like a Rosso Rubino, which is a little bit darker than the usual Corsa Rossa. But to try to figure out some of the controls, figure out the ventilation, I can feel some air coming in underneath here. It's kind of important. On top of all that stuff, I gotta make sure that we know how to control all of it. Noisy. Sounds like a lot of the sound deadening is out of this car. I hear a lot of noise. It's not necessarily wind noise, but it's loud. Man. If I remember correctly, we did some of the, on the inspection on this car also, we need a new exhaust system. It's starting to get a little perforated. So some of this noise is probably just due to a exhaust system that's just about worn out with quite a few holes. But I also think I'm going to take the carpets up and take a look and see what they're using for sound deadening. You know, it really does make a big difference. I think in the early cars, they did put some kind of insulation in, but it always helps. You know, we don't realize how much sound insulation is in our modern cars until you get in an old car and realize they use not as much. And it actually is pretty fatiguing when you have this much noise all day long, especially if this guy wants to take it out for a rally and he'll be in the car for, you know, 10, 12 hours a day. Yeah, it'll wear the hell out of you. So, you know, I think what we will do is, you know, probably suggest putting a little bit more sound deadening in. Also, this car doesn't have a side view mirror. You know, problem with that is I think out of safety, it's probably not a bad idea to put a side view mirror, unless some guys will put like one of these wide rear view mirrors in the center to help look out the back, but we'll have to discuss that. You know, in 1964, when this car was sold, it wasn't. It was sold as an option for a side view mirror. So you know, a lot of cars didn't have it, and a lot of restorers don't put them on because they think it spoils the line of the car. You know. Got a little, you know, I think we're going to try to see if I just try to feel the acceleration on this car, feel if it's feels good. It's more of a gut feeling. We're going to see whether or not you know, we have the it tuned the way we want it. Second gear's a little slow. I think I know this guy in the Volvo in front of us. So the summer that the owners had this car, he's made a list of things that he'd like to try to look at and try to do. One of the things I do often on these cars that are driven all the time is I put a secondary fuel pump that runs parallel with the original fuel pump. I'm sure you heard when I first start these things, they have this click, click, click of the fuel pump, and that's the old FISPA fuel pump, kind of electromagnet that kind of pulls this plunger up and down, and it's operated by points. So ironically, is when it gets hot, the points start to arc, or the voltage drops, and all of a sudden, you know, you're getting arcing. And the fuel pump stops working. That's exactly when you need a fuel pump, because when it's hot, that's when, you know, gasoline starts to evaporate and vapor lock, and you need to really rely on an electric fuel pump. Vintage Ferraris have two fuel pumps. They have the mechanical pump that runs normally, but then also uses the electric pump to not only prime the system when you start it, but also it needs it for when you're running hot and the fuel needs a little bit of extra push. And what ends up happening is you need just a little bit help with a modern electric fuel pump that helps you push some more fuel through it. So what I usually do is I have these fittings that I get that allow you to run a extra fuel pump that has a modern solid state switching, and is a little bit more reliable. So I can either run them with just the electric fuel pump, the modern one, or I sometimes run it parallel, where the modern one runs underneath while you still hear the old pump running. So it sounds like you're still running the old one, but in actuality, if you listen carefully, you can hear the swishing of the modern pump underneath. think we need a clutch adjustment there. A little too high. Or it's a little too low, I think. Almost grabs it real low. Going over some of the gauges. Water temperature barely looks like it's even moving. So we'll have to see whether or not there's even a thermostat in the water temp. Yeah, you can definitely hear a little bit of squeaking there from the clutch draw bearing. But again, if we're going to deal with transmission, we can deal with that then. But anyway, yeah, that's the Lusso. Let's see. Let's take a look a little closer on the rest of the car.